All right, so Caleb Crooms here, Texas Youth Director with Jeremy Campbell. We're going to talk a little bit about Gen Z and video world. Some crazy uh, statistics are out now about Gen Z and kind of the, uh, I guess, kind of a fingerprint of what it is that they look at for videos, how they want to be communicated, their favorite websites, and all that sort of thing. And I just kind of want to maybe go through a little bit of that with you. Just to give you some information that may be useful when you're thinking in the context of ministry and how you want to reach Generation Z. So obviously, Generation X, Generation Y, Generation Z. Generation X were those born around the mid 60s to around mid 70s to late 70s, even in the 1980. Generation Y is 1980-ish to 95 to 2000. It just depends on who you ask on these um, generations. But then Generation Z are those late 90s until now. So Gen Z are the kids that we're ministering to in youth and children's ministry. In fact, there's on the planet, there's about 2.5 billion Gen Z. And when you look at the last two generations, so Generation X, or I'm sorry, Generation Y, which are millennials, they wanted to be contacted by email, roughly 43%. Well, Generation Z, that's down 10%. They want to be contacted by email. Only 33% want to be contacted that way. So email and regular mail are becoming less and less their desired mode of being contacted, while online ads and social media are going up. 29% of millennials say they want to be connected through or reached or contacted through social media, and 34% of Generation Z. And then online ads for millennials, 16% want to be connected, but Generation Z, 28%. And here's another interesting thing about websites. For Generation Y or millennials, their favorite website is Amazon.com. But for Generation Z, their favorite website is YouTube. And the stats that are out there say that 70% of Generation Z watch 2 or more hours of YouTube content daily. And so they're super tech savvy. Nearly half, or 46%, are connected 10 or more hours a day online. And they don't just consume culture through these videos, but they help create it, and they help shape culture because of their creativity. In fact, 80% of Generation Z say they like to find themselves creatively, and that it's very important to them. And then 65% of Generation Z enjoy creating and sharing content on social media. And a lot of these post original content, some daily and many weekly. So in ministry, and what Jeremy is going to share with us here in just a second is that Generation Z can be a big asset to the video world in your church and your local ministry. And you don't have to do it all yourself, and being creative and coming up with ideas, etc., for ministry content on video. But you can actually utilize this generation that you're actually ministering to help you co-create the culture of what you're trying to develop and build in your church. So glad to have Jeremy Campbell. He's the worship pastor and youth pastor at Grace Point Church in Irving, Texas. And he is going to kind of give us the spill here on Generation Z and media world. So Jeremy, the floor is yours, man.
Awesome. So glad to be here. The importance of video news and kind of what we do on our Sunday services and some on our Wednesday services is really just to communicate better. Using video news in our services helps you communicate in a way and connect in a way that is really just short and to the point. You know, you're going to grab attention better with someone talking in a video and showing different aspects of video than standing up there for 5 to 10 minutes sharing about what's going on in the church or events that are coming up. And so unintentionally, sometimes those things just linger over. They last a long time. Something jogs your mind. We try to make jokes that aren't funny. But those video news, you can edit things out and it connects with people in a way that helps us communicate better. Another reason we use video in our services and in our church is to celebrate things that are being done. Trust me, the people in your church, they want to see what your students are doing. They want to see what your children are doing. If you did a car wash, they want to see a recap video of it. If you go to Winterfest and you attend Winterfest, but the time just doesn't allow for your students to share a testimony in service, a 2 to 3 minute video is a great way to recap Winterfest, a huge event, and also incorporate what God is doing in their lives in service, rather than having each student share 2 to 3 minutes. And if you're whether you're creating video news or announcements, throwing a recap video in the midst of that is the perfect time to do that. You don't have to have video news or announcements and then later on in the service show a recap video or informational video. Meshing it all together is the perfect time to do that. So for an example, this Sunday in our video news, we have our normal announcements, which includes guests and just other things, events happening in our church. But we're also doing a short plug for church camp. And all we do is, hey, here, church camp's coming up. It's not that far away. And then here's the promo video. And we're able to show that. And rather than me or whoever getting up there and saying, hey, church camp's coming up, it's going to be great, we hope to see you there, and then I don't get to show anything, they're not excited. Well, video can show that. Video can explain more in 2 minutes, in 1 minute, than I can in 5 minutes. And so video use and connecting with each generation, but definitely Generation Z, is the quickest and fastest way for them to grasp and understand. But also understand that when we use video in service, that doesn't mean that we quit announcing things in service. It doesn't mean we stop saying things that are important, because what video does, it highlights the big things. And let's say, for instance, my pastor, say it is church camp season, and we announce church camp in the video, and at the end of service, our pastor just reminds us, hey, don't forget, church camp's coming up. Be here at 8 a.m. on Tuesday to get in the van, or, just little things. So video is great, but it doesn't necessarily mean you substitute it for all announcements. Sometimes things just need to be said. People need to be reminded, because you may have 4 things in a video, but they only remember 1, but you really wanted them to remember the 3rd thing in the video that's coming up next. So the goal of video news is to communicate effectively. The goal of video in our church is to communicate effectively. The goal of YouTube is to communicate effectively. And the reason we want to use video in our services is so that we can get to the most important part. So if you're taking 5 to 10 minutes with announcements, well, you're taking away from worship, you're taking away from the message, you're taking away from things that are more important in a service. So video news is a great way to do that. Budget, how you start video news in your services with no budget is like this. You have a phone, you have lights, and you have a script. While we're in Irving, so Gateway is about 30 minutes from us, while Gateway might be looking for their next camera, which is $25,000, we might be looking and saving up for a camera that might be $1,500. But for the last 6 years, I've still used my camera that works great. That's $400. It's still doing the job. With no budget, you need a phone, you need light, and you need a script. So when we first started out, I still have some of the videos. Maybe I can plug them in the email after this, but they were horrible. And they were great at the time, but you look back and you think, man, those were horrible. And sometimes they went too long. Sometimes what we thought was funny and on 4 or 5 minutes really could have been done in 2 or 3 minutes. But we came a long way, and all started with a camera, and literally you can see a lamp behind me. It was just a lamp, and we just got it close enough to somebody where it kind of lit up their face. And that's how we started. We didn't have a teleprompter. We didn't have anything. We just would look at a piece of paper, try to memorize a script. And if we messed up, we would edit it later and edit out the things that were bad or didn't work for the video. But just starting out, it was rough. But looking back, it was good for what we needed at the time. So video quality is important. Most phones nowadays have a great camera. Honestly, the megapixels I have on my iPhone are actually higher quality than the megapixels on the camera I use for video news. It's just easier for me to use the camera that I have for that. Second thing is sound, and sound is more important than your video, because if people can't understand you or hear you, then what you're trying to say in the video isn't going to come across. So if they can't understand you, then your video has no purpose. Shoot in a quiet area. If you go outside, just make sure it's not in the wind, because that'll just ruin your video. And then one of the things I've learned this past year being at Grace Point is B-roll footage is so important. What B-roll footage is, it's just taking videos of everything. If you Sunday services, Wednesday youth, children's, if you're having to get together, hanging out, a small group, eating, just have somebody with their phone, do it in landscape view. That's so important when you do video. If you're going to use your phone, not like this, landscape, it'll fill up your screen at your church. And so landscape view. So yeah, B-roll footage is super important. And basically you're just is collecting footage for the next year. So for instance, last year, because I just joined the staff, I didn't have any footage just so for Easter. But this year, because I shot videos for Easter, I was able to have footage this year for Easter. And it's all old video. For instance, you'll see in the next couple of weeks, camp videos roll out. Well, camp hasn't happened this year. That means I haven't shot videos. And B-roll footage from last year, what we used, is now the camp footage for this year. It looks good. It's a good video, and it's going to get the message across. It's 1 minute long. And we do 1 minute because even though we can have unlimited on YouTube, we can have tons of time on Facebook. Instagram is 1 minute. Most students, they're on Instagram. We got 1 minute. If we can't say in 1 minute, then I have to ask, does it really matter? So B-roll footage, use lamps for lights. If that's all you got is a lamp, use it. LED white lights work a little bit better. They don't make your faces yellow. And then iPhone, if you are using an iPhone, you can use iMovie to edit on your iPhone or download an app. Or if you're using an Android, I'm sure there's different apps out there. I use an iMac or a MacBook Pro, and for I think 8 years I used iMovie, and then not until this past year did I use Final Cut. So I just used a free editing software for 8 years until this past year. So that's what worked for me. But obviously with a little more budget, you can save, you can purchase lights, purchase camera, purchase teleprompter, those kind of things. But I've used the same equipment for 6 years until this last few months, where I've slowly started updating, and most of the equipment was mine. I didn't have a church buying these things for me. It was just my own stuff. I used what I had. I had a lamp laying around, so I used my lamp and started the video. And then I used a $2 picture frame from Walmart to make my teleprompter. That was it. I looked at something on YouTube, and there I had a teleprompter. And then also, lastly, if you're using songs from iTunes, this is important. I'm sure you've already figured out, because you've probably made some sweet video of your youth group or your students or your church, and you're like, man, this song is perfect. I love the song. This is the song that tells exactly what this video is. And then you upload it, and Facebook's like, no, that's not going to work. This is copyright information. I've attached in the email that you'll get after this resources that you can use that is for royalty-free music. Now you can just Google that, and you can download royalty-free music, and you can publish it anywhere. But royalty-free music for the church is they're attached in the email after this, and you can check that out. But that's the biggest thing, because you will, if you do upload your video news or any kind of videos, to Facebook or even YouTube, they're going to get flagged and they're not going to allow you to publish them. So the easiest way to avoid that is just find some royalty-free music, and go from there. And then the last thing is just remember that the goal for video in your church, video in your social media, whatever you post, is to connect with people. That's the goal. It's not about you. It's connect with people. It's to recap the things that your church is doing, that your students are doing. And you can literally, I talked with one of our staff members about this in our photography team, and it goes the same way for our video team, is you're a scribe for your church. When you start doing videos, when you start doing your church, you're a scribe for your church, and you're documenting the things that your church is doing so you can see down the road that how far God has brought you and the great thing God has done using you and your team.
That's awesome, Jeremy. So basically, there's somebody in every church, I believe, that can be that scribe that Jeremy's talking about here, that can actually do the video content, do the preparation to get the lights, the camera, the location, the one holding the camera, like Jeremy was saying, in services. Even if you can't do it or you're on the platform, whatever may be happening, you may be in the middle of the event that you're hosting, so you don't have the time to be able to get out there with a camera, but you got somebody there that wants to be creative. And I really believe that they're sitting there in your youth ministry or in your kids ministry. And as I mentioned earlier with the statistics on Generation Z, they want to co-create culture. They want to help create culture. They don't want to simply consume entertainment. They want to help create it, and they want to shape that creativity. And again, I think these are important statistics, that 80% of Generation Z say that finding themselves creatively is important. And so because so many of them, 65%, enjoy creating and sharing content on social media, it makes sense to think outside the box and allow a student or someone who has that passion and drive to do this kind of stuff, or a team that you could develop in your youth ministry or children's ministry or young adult ministry. Allow them to be creative and find their niche, because, as you know, not the only ministry in a church is holding the microphone. It's those behind the cameras. It's those that are being creative with these ideas. So some great content that Jeremy has given us tonight. Another thing I would mention, if you're doing things online, socially, that this Generation Z, they prefer videos online that are 60 seconds or less. And so that's just what they prefer. They like edgy content. And again, because they're tech savvy, they respond to edgy and visual marketing tactics. So again, when you're doing your videos, think 60 seconds or less. And like Jeremy mentioned, if you can't say it in 60 seconds, maybe the unimportant stuff is what drives our videos to be longer than they need to be. So think outside the box, and we'll be sending out an email and a follow-up to this video to everybody that can watch it at a later time on our YouTube channel. Check the chat section here. We do have our YouTube channel link there, as well as all camp resources there. But again, thanks guys for joining the call. Jeremy, thanks so much, man, for the information you've given to us. And we look forward to seeing you guys next time. All right. Take care and God bless.